Hey guys, this is Sean with Solis Review, coming back after a little bit of a break in my videos. Today I wanted to go over the Prime 1 Studio 1/3 scale guts from Berserk. Now this was both from manga and several animes and video games, and he pretty much as a character started the giant sword craze, but let's get into this. I'm making the video now. I've had him for about 7 or 8 months or so. Been waiting to do a review. Been doing a lot of construction. As you can see, it's still in progress for my display. But Dr. Kentaro Miura, he passed away this month. And so that one hit hard, and I decided now was the time to make sure I did my review. Yes, Dr. Kentaro Miura was the creator of the manga for Berserk. I've been a fan of Berserk for 20 years. I've had even a tattoo of the logo of Berserk for 20 years on my arm. It's always been near and dear to me. It was huge for me to be able to get a 1/3 statue of Guts, to have that presence in that kind of a scale. So this was for me a really huge get, and I'm so glad that I pre-ordered it. Little backstory here if you're not familiar with the Guts backstory. Guts has a pretty twisted and horrible life of things that happened to him. I won't get into all that in here, but he has had a tragic life, and born to war, born to fighting, and through strife he joined a team of mercenaries, and long story short, it's really hard to put it into that, but his best friend betrayed him and kind of sold his soul to a group of like demons and took them all to hell to be a sacrifice. Guts fought his way out and is seeking revenge, and to restore the love of his life. That is such a, gross oversweep of that show and that manga, but essentially it's a cool, dark fantasy revenge story, but it has a lot of really endearing light moments as well that show a huge amount of depth from the author. And probably the most I've ever seen of character development in a story ever over the time period, but it's always been a favorite of mine. With the creator, Dr. Miura, passing away, we don't know if the manga will be finished, or if there was notes, if somebody else will be taking over for him. So hopefully we hear news on that. With Japanese culture, they give a respectful period of silence, so it may take a long period of time before we hear anything else. But fingers crossed. I'd like to know how that story ends for sure. Concept-wise, does this how close is this to either the anime or the manga? And I would say, for me, it's dead on. I've heard some people talk about the face not being like the manga or the anime, but I grew up loving the anime, 97 anime. And so for me, this is dead on. Like, it brings more details to my mind than I even knew about. But I'll wait till that part of the review. But yes, this is directly from, to me, whatever part of it you like, because you can use options of having Pip there, or having him on his shoulder, or depending on what face you have, can kind of evoke different emotions. And so yeah, I think the concept is dead on. Classic with Prime 1, right? Measurements with the sword in the front, the measurement I just measured was about 37 inches. I believe with the sword on the back, it's closer to 40. It is a tall one for sure, but gorgeous if you are a fan, for sure. Okay, let's start with Sculpt. The base is kind of built off of looking like his Berserker armor from the Skull Knight. I think it looks really cool. It reminds me of his, it looks directly like his boots. That kind of worn, used, battle damaged black metal with wear on it. And it kind of curves up into a stand bowl-ish kind of thing that makes it look like it's full of either, it's got to be glowing blood from, it reminds me of when they were transported to hell after the eclipse. It's glowing, it's full of bodies, it's bloody. The sculpt on the clear resin looks great. It is really cool with the really macabre bodies that are in there. And I don't know if those are his enemies or if that's part of the, his party from the eclipse. I mean, obviously, since he's in this armor, it's got to be after the eclipse, but I don't know who those bodies are. Okay, so the cape is mixed medium. Looking at the body here, the armor is really well sculpted. It has a lot of like battle damage lines in it. You can see history. It feels like this has been worn. The boots look just like the display, which look like a painted metal that's been worn. The leather that comes out from the armor of the boots looks really good. It's really frayed. It looks like a leather that's been tanned and worn for years out in the field. Armor again on the thighs, solid, looks really cool. Love the like battle marks on it. His dagger looks, the leather to me looks like soft, like you could touch it and it would feel like leather. Bag looks okay. There's even bags behind the cape, which, I mean, I know that they would do that. They would go to that extra mile, but it feels good to know that if you didn't want to use the cape, like the back would look really cool still. Obviously, the sword is a highlight. Awesome. The presence from it is just, it feels intimidating. It feels like, I mean, the sword looks like it's almost like a Roman short sword as far as like length here. People saw me walking with that and were like, whoa, what are you doing? As far as the skin, it's great. I mean, it's got those little details like the, folds around the elbow and a lot of skin texture that looks great. The wraps on his arm, they look really well done. It doesn't feel fake. One of the highlights for me, absolutely, though, is his fake arm. I know it's not metal, but it really looks like old black rusted metal. They did a really good job. It's not just all one color. There's a ton of depth. The sculpt on the artificial arm, the mechanism of the arm that would normally open and reveal like a cannon in it, it looks real. I keep wanting to touch it and see if it'll open, but it won't. But the throwing dagger belt on his chest, same leather effect, looks great. There's really good veinage. Like I said, the wraps look really good. The handle on the sword looks like I don't know, it's very gritty, visceral. It feels like, you could just grab it and go. Sculpt on the head, on the portrait, like I said, I think that the portrait looks phenomenal. I think it looks right out of the anime for me, which is where I most love this series. The hair, it looks exactly as it did in the anime. It's the kind of the anime chunky hair. it's dead on for what it is. Is it photorealistic here? No, but to me it looks exactly like the medium that I fell in love with. And you can't ask for better than that. Okay, so like I said, also the chains are all real. The little chain hanging part on the sword, that feels real. It jiggles around. Everything feels like real armor. Not that I would go touching the armor a lot to wear things down, but when it was putting it in, I noticed just that's a lot of extra detail. They could have sculpted a lot of that on, but they didn't, and I think that it added to it. Really happy with that. Now, engineering wise for the piece, it is a very heavy piece. It should be. It's 1/3. The battery compartment is inside the symbol of sacrifice logo. You can pull it out, put batteries in, put it back in. I don't like batteries in any piece I have. I would always prefer an AC/DC like wall plug-in. I think it's just better. I want it to come on when I turn my lights on with, like, you know, my Google smart home. So to me, that's a miss for sure. There are kits to rewire it. You would have a wire coming out, but I don't know. We'll see. But again, I think that that was a miss for sure, not being able to have that on whenever you turn the lights on. I hate walking around and having to manually turn on things on my shelf. It's no good for me. But engineering wise, guts went into the base quite well. It's very snug. There's no wobble at all. Everything feels really secure. The artificial hand is removable. The arm that holds the sword is removable. The handle sticks with both of those arms. The sword, I guess it's probably unavoidable since it's so big. If you have it in the front, it will go down into the glowing blood pool. And it has a little felt pad where it touches so it's not rubbing, which is great. But I noticed that it seems very fragile on the tip. So you have to be careful not to overextend it all, and it must sit in on a peg that isn't what I would call substantial for the sword. So I've had where it was a little tricky removing the sword and the arm at the same time. You can get it, you gotta be careful. Okay, so it comes with 3 portraits. The sword wrap tail, an extra arm, extra sword, and 2 of your little Pip fairy buddies. I guess they're elves technically in the manga, but 2 different versions of him. And then if you're using the sword behind his arm, you have this bloody hand with the shape of a sword below it to go into that hole, and it's really cool. I love that they thought of that. Each of the little hook peg things go on pretty secure. It was really easy to build. One really challenging part was that cape, though. I think the cape could have been better designed as far as how it is installed. There are these 2 really small holes for the wire on both sides that it took me a good 20-30 minutes to find, and a friend of mine actually had to send me pictures showing me that they actually exist. I tried wrapping it through chains that were built into his vest, and you know, it was serviceable for what I was seeing, but it took a while to find those actual holes, and then getting them in once you found the holes. They're like these wires that are pre-bent, and getting them down into it's just really hard. There's a hole on his left shoulder where you can stick in one of your fairy friends, Pep here. that is also really difficult to get either of the characters in there. And yeah, I was afraid I was going to damage some of the wings on there. I mean, they're not super durable, so be careful for sure. Paint. I went over this a little bit. Really love the paint on the base. And the color on the clear resin is really good. There's like a glow that fades in it too. That's really nice. The wow paint on the bodies is crazy good. Like, I'm looking at the skull and I see, like, you know, layers of blood color and connective tissue and veins and stuff, that, and like detail in the skull area underneath, like layers of skinless parts of their body that just look really, really, really good. The armor has essentially the same kind of a paint scheme as the base. Beautiful. The vest, it looks like a really cool kind of an armored leather. Everything is strikingly realistic as far as that. Paint for like blood splatter from where, you know, his bandages, from where he's holding the sword, looks really good. I'm really, really impressed with a lot of the small detail that they put into this. The sword that you use in the front has a lot of blood marks on it. The sword that you put behind you would have none, but they both have like damage marks on it. But I think it's cool that they gave you that option for sure. So, reflecting back, Dr. Kentaro Miura, this was his masterpiece. This is what he'll always be known for. It's beautiful. I am sorry to see that he passed away, and I would want to put out there, thank you for what you've given us, and I think it'll be read for a very, very long time. I picked this piece up through Spec Fiction. Awesome shop if you guys haven't used it, and yes, it is legit for the 7,000th time. But Todd is awesome. Give him a shot, and I think you'll be really impressed. Thank you for tuning in, guys.